Hey, I'm Alex Astley with AFS 401k, and I'm here with Clarice Avery from Natixis Investment Managers. She's an investment specialist in their ESG group, and we're talking about ESG investing, or economic, social, and governance, what maybe people have thought of as socially responsive or socially responsible investing. Certainly an area of focus when we're talking to retirement committee members. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, to start off, why don't you just set a little bit of the landscape around this strategy of ESG investing, what it is today, where we've come from, and as a committee member, retirement committee member, what I should be thinking about.
Okay. Maybe I'll start with what it is first.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, the term ESG, I think is kind of the term that you'll hear the most to describe these types of approaches that consider environmental, social, and governance factors in some way. Sort of become the catch-all term for any approach that considers these factors in any way, which there's a lot of different approaches. But if you think back, like SRI is a term that some might be familiar with, which stands for socially responsible investing. That was kind of the old school way of doing this. Years and years ago, it started with sort of the religious institutions that wanted to divest from sin stocks or not invest in those stocks.
Okay.
So tobacco, alcohol, gambling, maybe even weapons, things like that. Today, we understand that those types of approaches didn't necessarily perform well because when you exclude entire sectors or industries from the investable universe, you're ultimately limiting your investable universe.
You're not getting exposure.
And then you're kind of limiting the return potential of that strategy. So, but today we're seeing that the approaches have certainly evolved and it's become more of a full ESG integration approach where we're thinking about environmental and social issues both from a risk and opportunity perspective. So we want to understand that the companies we're investing in are managing their environmental risk. So what's their carbon footprint like? Are they preparing for climate change? What's their water and waste management process look like? On the social side, it's how does this company treat its employees? How do they deal with customers and suppliers? And are they contributing and giving back to the local community? We've seen more and more data to show that when an investment manager considers these types of factors in their investment process, they can actually generate outsized risk-adjusted returns because those things actually help add value over time. So we're seeing it more from that positive approach. We want to find companies that are doing things well, not just get rid of the things that we think is bad. So we're seeing an involvement in the types of approaches which we like, and we're also seeing massive growth in the size of this space. So we're seeing a lot more investors that are demanding these types of strategies. We're seeing it on the defined contribution side as well. We're hearing from plan participants that they want to have these types of approaches in their plan because they feel like they can do more with their money in that sense. So we're seeing a lot of interest in that as well.
Yeah, and our experience working with employees inside companies, certainly in younger professionals in particular, we hear more and more an interest around investing in companies that have positive sustainability and social impacts. Your data suggests the same thing, is that investors are looking for these types of investment options.
Yep.
And so it's something the retirement committee members and companies should be aware of.
Yeah, particularly as millennials are a bigger and bigger part of the workforce. And maybe millennials are the least of our worries at this point as Gen Z comes up, right? It's always the next thing. And we know that these, and it's across demographics too. We wouldn't just say that this is only for millennials and Gen Zers, but we find that people across demographics want to do more with their money. If they know those options are available to them, they're more likely to invest in them.
And Clarice, if I'm on a retirement committee, should I survey my employee population about their interest in ESG? Should I wait for an employee or employees to come to me? Or is this something you feel like committees and plan sponsors should be proactively looking at? I know it's a little bit of a loaded question, but just give me your sort of experience here and what you're seeing based on the survey data that Natixis does around this.
Yeah, I mean, we find that it's better to be proactive, and you might not, even if your employees might be interested in this, they might not know it because they don't know that those options are available to them. If they don't know it's available, they're not going to ask those questions. So I think being proactive, maybe doing some sort of survey or reaching out to maybe a kind of a test group of employees to see what their thoughts are on this and if it's something that they would value. I think that's a great place to start because our research shows that we survey plan participants every year, and 3/4 of them tell us that they want more of these types of options in their plan, and if they knew that those options were there and they knew that they were contributing in terms of environmental or social impact, they would actually be more likely to increase their participation rates. So from an employee engagement perspective, improving participation rates, we think it's a good tool for that.
And companies and organizations, when offering retirement plans, you have this sort of balance of offering the right mix of investments without offering too many. So far, have you seen broad-based ESG strategies used inside of a 401k or a 403 investment menu, or kind of specific subcategories of maybe some area within the ESG industry, if you will?
Yeah, sometimes it depends on the organization and what their core mission and what their core values are. There might be certain approaches that align better with that.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that's another point. You can align, the plan with the values of the company. But more and more, we're seeing that you can't please everyone, right? And every employee is going to care about different things. So I really care about climate change, but maybe you don't. So maybe you don't have a fund.
That's just a hypothetical, by the way.
I'm sure you do. So maybe you don't want to invest in a renewable energy fund or include a renewable energy fund. So maybe it's better to take sort of a multi-thematic approach.
Got it. And as I mentioned before, I mean, we're certainly hearing more and more interest around this. And in a blog post with this video, we'll link some resources so for those who are watching the video can develop their knowledge around ESG investing. But if I'm on a retirement committee and I'm watching this video, what's the kind of big takeaway for me that I should be thinking about or taking action on after our time together runs out?
Really just using ESG as a tool to engage your employees. It's a tool to attract and retain the next generation of employees, and really just to get them more involved in their retirement savings.
Well, Clarice, thank you so much for joining us from Natixis and an investment specialist on ESG. Really appreciate all of your wisdom and insight, and hopefully this was helpful for everybody.
Thanks, Alex. See you soon.